Okay, here we go.
Test, 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 test.
Roll music?
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
You know, you've heard it more than a few times now on the Unknown Morning Show that origin stories we find are very interesting to us. And the gentleman that we have today on the Unknown Morning Show, when we talk about brand names, because radio is a brand name, the call letters are the brand name, and he is a very well-known brand name here in Tyler, Texas. It's Lucky Larry Thompson. Hi, Larry.
Hey, Chuck.
and so because we were talking about it this morning, Mandee and I, you know, before the show, and because I had forgotten about it and I'd gotten a couple things confused. How did you become Lucky Larry? What's the origin story with that?
Wow, this goes way back.
It
First of all,
does.
thank you very much for having me on this morning. I greatly appreciate it.
Doesn't she have a great studio here?
It is. It's like a little clubhouse.
Thank you.
It's a clubhouse
I enjoy
overlooking some trees here. It's very, very peaceful, very nature-esque here.
Everybody likes Mandee's place, let me tell you.
Oh my goodness.
Well, going back, I've always wanted to be in radio ever since I was a small kid. And when I was in college at UT Arlington in the late 90s or the mid 90s, I was an intern at KISS in Dallas at 106.1 KISS FM. And I was working for Kid Craddock as an intern. We would go to these club appearances every Wednesday night, and the place was called Blue Planet, and it was ladies' night at Blue Planet. The morning show guy, Kid Craddock, had a producer by the name of JB, and JB was the talent that was always at Blue Planet. And I'd go there, and being an intern, the promotions intern, you don't do anything. You just go hang the banners and you just hang out. And
How old were you?
Oh, man.
Ish.
I was
19, 20, 21?
No, I was probably early 20s.
Okay.
Early 20s when I was doing this. And we would go there every Wednesday. And we had this big, huge machine. It was they called it a cash cube. And you got to put your hands in it and you got to get some money out of it. Well, JB he goes, dude, just follow my lead.
Uh-oh.
I'm like, okay, I'm not doing anything. I'm just standing by this table. And he goes, come on stage with me. I said, all right, cool. I went on stage and he got like 5 ladies from the audience at the club. And he brought them up on stage and he said, all right, ladies, you keep asking me who this guy is that keeps coming up here with me every single week. He said his name is Lucky Butt Larry. And if you rub his butt, it'll bring you good luck. And here I am. I'm not believe it or not, I'm not a very outgoing person with an outgoing personality outside of radio. So I'm very shy.
How mortified were you?
I was my face was turning really red and I could feel it. I could feel my face boiling all of a sudden. Well, out of the 5 women that were on stage, 1 woman rubbed my butt and she won the trivia contest. And so she got to stick her hands in this cash cube and get some money. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't the end of it until the next morning when I was at the morning show, because we were there answering phones for the morning show. And JB had told Craddock what happened. And he said, you're the new street guy. I said, what? He said, we're going to get you in a van and we're going to put you on the street. And we're going to have people rub your butt for luck. I'm like, okay. And so this happened and we did this. And this was like, I want to say it was early May one year. It was my senior years in 95. And the lottery was just an astronomical amount. The jackpot lottery was.
Yeah.
And Craddock wanted me to go out to a 7-Eleven and have people rub lottery tickets on my butt. And I'm like, okay. He goes, but you got to do it tomorrow. I said, ooh, I can't do it tomorrow. He goes, why can't you? Because I had finals at school and I couldn't get out that morning and do this street appearance. But he goes, all right, here's the deal. You're going to drive the van home. You're going to go to the 7-Eleven at Green Oaks and 360, and you're going to stand in that 7-Eleven. And sure enough, I did it because I wanted a career in radio. And so that's what you do. So I was out there at like 6:30 in the morning and people
People did it.
They did come by and did it. But that's the backstory, and that's how I got the name Lucky Larry. And of course, but when I got the job here in East Texas and I moved here, the general manager at the time said, okay, you can keep the name, but you have to drop "but" because we don't want to offend the listeners. So you're just going to be Lucky Larry.
Sure.
And so that's how the brand was
It slipped in a few times.
Oh yeah.
When you were here in East Texas, because you had some buddies that followed you down here, or were here before
They
you.
were here before me. They
Yes.
they helped me get the job here working overnights. One guy was doing nights and one guy was doing afternoons, and they were on the air. And they would, in the middle of the day, they'd go, "Hey, if you're ever up late at night, call my good buddy Lucky Butt Larry here at the studio. He'll play whatever song you want to." Well, one day
Thanks.
the general manager heard that several times, and he called me into his office and he said, "I told you not to use that." I go, "Man, I'm not on the radio at that time. You hired me from midnight to 6, and that's what I'm doing. If you're hearing it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's your buddy Joey."
Yes.
So yeah, I got in trouble for it from other people though.
We were talking, before you got here, Larry, about how incredibly talented, though, that staff was. You were doing overnights. Joey was afternoons, Jake nights.
Yes.
Let's see.
Storm in the
Michael
morning.
Storm was in the
Storm,
morning.
Mick
Mick
Fulgham.
Fulgham was in middays.
Was Jeff Evans was in there somewhere, I'm sure, wasn't he? I thought Jeff was doing APD stuff.
Jeff was on, he had moved to KTYL to 93.1 because
Okay.
we were all on 107.3.
Okay.
On Mix 107.3.
Yeah.
And by that time, I believe Jeff had already moved over to 93.1.
But it was just loaded. And, I could listen to you guys and go, yeah, you're loaded. And I could hear, particularly Joey, and go, man, these guys are going places. You just, it would be like you hear voices and you say, they're out of market people. They should be going on somewhere. And they're just so talented. And for Tyler, they would push the envelope pretty good too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, really well. I would sit there and listen occasionally and go, you're pushing the envelope pretty good. Keep doing it.
Well, one thing, we had a operations manager one time that said, if I don't receive 3 complaint calls a week from listeners, you're not doing your job.
Really?
I have to get complaint calls. Larry Kent was his name, and he said, if you're not getting complaints, if I'm not getting complaints, you're not doing your job. That means you're not pushing the envelope and you're not testing people to make them interact and engage with the radio station.
Sure.
And to voice their opinion.
Larry Kent. Now, this is Larry Kent.
You worked with Larry Kent too,
I worked
Chuck.
with Larry.
But it was country music
But it's-
versus pop.
Yeah, it was country music too.
CHR.
And I never got that, vibe from Larry at all.
Yeah.
That's a totally different thing. But
I would imagine it's a different format, right? Your listeners on country music, you don't want to push the envelope with them so much, I wouldn't think.
I wouldn't
that
think
time.
so, but I've never been in that country world. I've always
Right.
been in a top 40 pop music world.
And I think it varies from station to station. Now, when I was at KNUE, it was very much, this is how we're doing it. And I think part of it had to do is when KNUE was birthed, it was, we're going to be this regional station. We have a 100,000 watt stick, and we're going to play a lot of music, and we're going to be inoffensive. So I think it varies from station to station, or the culture that you have in your building.
Right. Yeah, and Joey, he went on from here to work in Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma.
Well, he went to Tulsa, but
There
he's
we
been
go.
in Oklahoma City for 12 or 15 years now.
Is he still
on a morning
active
show.
there?
He's still a morning show.
Great.
On there. And then Jake, who was doing evenings or nights, and then we eventually did a morning show together. He's been with the Craddock Show for, I want to say, nearly 20 years as their executive producer.
Okay.
So he's gone on. Of course, he knew Craddock when Kid was alive.
Yes.
And we were all interns together at KISS in Dallas, and that's how the three of us got together to move here. But yeah, they've gone on to do some really, really fantastic things.
That's terrific.
And he has a podcast, The Fat Guy Handbook.
Yes, he does.
He does.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Even the title makes me want to listen to it.
Yeah.
Larry, you were talking about being interested in radio like all your life. When was there like a specific thing that crystallized when you thought, I want to be in radio? did you visit a station? Did you have like an encounter with, a Dallas jock or something like that?
There's been, I've thought about that question many times. Actually, I thought about it on the way over here this morning. Growing up in Dallas, I listened to 99.5 KPLX.
Yes.
And they would always be flexing your plex back in the 80s and stuff. And then there was a new station that signed on. It was Y95. And it was a top 40 station, and it was going up against the Eagle when it was a top 40 station. But there was a jock on Y95. He was a morning show guy, and at the same time, he was a meteorologist on WFAA, the TV station. So
Wow.
I said, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to do TV weather, and I want to be on radio. And so that's when I was like, I was like probably in middle school or so. But I would keep track of all their songs on the Y95 playlist, and you had to call in and win stuff, and I would be doing that all the time. Well, when I was ended up going to college, I did 3 years at North Lake Community College, and I switched over to UTA to go for the big courses. Took a meteorology class. Well,
What did we find out?
I found out after you go into, like in college, you go for like 6 weeks and you have your first big test. The first big test, I got my first big F. Out of all my time in school, I never had an F until this time. And the professor called me and like 8 other people up in front of the auditorium full of people. And he said, okay, guys, you didn't pass the first test and you're not going to pass the class. So I suggest you go to the administrator's office and you drop this class and get your money back. I took his advice.
He did it in front of everyone?
Yes, in front of everyone.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, well, whatever, And so at that point, I never crossed Cooper again, which
Yes.
Cooper Street dissects UT Arlington.
Okay.
And so fine arts is on the western side and everything else is on the eastern side. I never crossed Cooper again, so I stayed there and I did radio.
How did you become an intern with Craddock?
A lot of persistence.
Yeah?
A lot of persistence. I was trying to intern at KSCS. It was Mix 102.9 at the time, and at KISS FM. And it was just, you just have to knock on the door and knock on the door. And once you're in, you just have to be the sponge and absorb everything that goes on at the radio station, whether it's in sales, it's in programming, it's in engineering, it's wherever. You just have to absorb everything and then see what you want to do. And that's the same thing I had to do to get the job here in Tyler. Once I graduated and I had my degree and everything, and I was ready to move on to the real world, it took me a month of calling Michael Storm, who was running Mix 107.3 at the time. I called him every single day for a month.
Did you really?
Yes. Letting him know that I was interested in the job because Jake and Joey, who already had jobs here, had said, hey, there's an overnight position coming open. This is your time. It was between me and another girl who was working part-time on the weekends. And so she already had experience and she had her foot in the door and she was already at the station and she was trying to do it. But apparently she wasn't reliable.
That's a big piece.
And
Yeah.
so it just took me, I kept calling them every single day. I'm still interested, letting you know I'm still here. I'll make that move. I'm ready to move.
Would Storm say, yeah, I know?
I never got the answer from Storm.
Really?
I got the call from Jake, my buddy. He
Yeah.
said, are you ready? I said, yeah. He said, Storm said, come on down. You got the job.
Oh, cool.
And so that was in February, Valentine's Day in 97 is when I came down. It was on a Friday, signed all the paperwork, and I started that next Monday.
I know that, we're all familiar with you on music radio, but you were talking about absorbing things and sales and et cetera. Have you ever done sales? Have you ever had to actually formally do sales?
No. When I was an intern in Dallas, I was in addition to doing the programming stuff and working with Craddock in the morning, I was what they called their sales courier. Okay. Because this is back before the internet and all the digital transfer of everything. You had to physically go and pick up reel-to-reel tapes and checks from clients. And so the AEs, the account execs, would have a list of people they wanted to go visit that day, But all it was to get a check. So I was their courier. I would go to this place and I'd go to this place and I'd stop by Fox 4 and pick up a dub that day. And then I'd go out to KXAS and get a dub and come back and bring it to the station.
Yeah. I did cable sales back in 90 between radio gigs, and I came out of it with so much respect for salespeople, because when I started in radio, there was back in the late 70s, it felt like there was a real division at times between programming and sales, and which through the years, and because of the fact, and I've said this before, that, with consolidation, there's just really no room on any staffs for, bickering, head cases, divas. That's gone, or it should be, I think, really. But I found it, tough and fascinating. But I came out of it like, I'll never criticize a salesperson ever, because the hardest job is to walk up to somebody and say, I would like your money, please, for something that you won't hear for a while and may not impact your business for quite some time as well.
And and you won't get anything tangible. You can't walk away with something.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's air.
Yes, it is.
It's literally air. Yeah.
I do have a lot of respect for salespeople too, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am now, and I wouldn't have the job and the career that I do. Because if there's not money coming into the station, there's no way to pay the bills. There's no way to pay me. So it's the salespeople. It's a really tough job for those guys.
And I think Mandee would tell you too that when we were working together at KKUS, some of the best times we had at the station, when there was real collaborative efforts between us and sales to develop, promotion. And we would do things on a weekly basis where we would talk to our sales manager. We'd have the one pager, which is, this is what we've done, this is what we are going to do this week, and this is what we've got on the horizon. And when that stuff worked really well for us, and it did, it was fantastic, because it made things just click, click, click. There wasn't any surprises much, I mean, it's radio.
There's always surprises.
Yeah.
And every once in a
Hey,
while,
I sold this promotion, so you're going to do it.
Oh, yeah. Or we would have things.
Sometimes it works out great.
Yes.
Sometimes not so much.
Yeah, right.
Larry, talk about how you went from overnights to mornings, because that's a pretty big leap in a day part on a station. I mean, typically you don't go from overnights to all of a sudden you're part of the morning show, do you? I mean, that's not normal.
That's not normal at all. My case was, I guess, very unique, and I'm very thankful that it happened the way it did. When I first started, radio now is completely different than the way it was when I first started. Back then, everything was live. You were punching buttons every 3 minutes or every 30 seconds. You're punching a button in there. But thanks to automation and computerization of the industry, you don't have to do that. And you don't have to be in the studio anymore to be on the radio. And in 97, thanks to consolidation, the company was getting bigger, and they're looking at ways to save some money. So all of a sudden, this computer system came on board. And the program directors at the time went down to Austin, to where the corporate headquarters were, and they were introduced to this thing called Wizard System. Mm-hmm. And they came back and they told the staff that the computer is coming on, the computer is going to make your job easier, and no one's going to lose their job.
Sorry.
That was what you were told.
Yes.
Come to find out months later that one person was let go, another person was let go, and apparently my overnight position was to be eliminated.
Yep.
And Storm said, I can't do this to this guy. I just brought him on less than 8 months ago. He's brand new. And because he knew I had experience with Craddock in the morning, he said, I'm going to have him stay on and incorporate him into the morning show. And so I became a very minor player on his morning show, because it was Storm's show. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very thankful for that, and thankful to him for keeping me on and making me a part of the morning show, because if not, I have no idea what I'd be doing. I might be still working at Six Flags, where I was working at before I got into radio.
But you have, I mean, this is a total left turn, so forgive this, but you had a blast, and you had many years at Six Flags, and you still have relationships with people at Six Flags that you worked with way back, right?
Oh, definitely. That was
Yeah.
that's basically my first job.
Yeah.
And just going there, just going to work there for a summer. And I was a baseline employee in the games department. And I worked there for 10 seasons. And when I left, I was what they call a managerial supervisor. And I was in charge of half of the games department.
Wow.
I was in charge of the labor, the expenses, and scheduling of three supervisors underneath me, another 3 area foremen, and like 300 seasonal employees. Yeah,
Kids.
That's when I left. But that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot from that job.
I bet.
And I have a lot of really, really good close friends from that job.
I remember when I was working with you at Mix, you still got tickets to give away to Six Flags on a regular basis. And I feel like you've been invited several times to come and try new rides when they've opened at the park, which to my knowledge, there aren't other jocks in the market that get that call.
No. The last one we did was this past summer. Shockwave, the double loop coaster there along I-30, celebrated I think it was its 5 millionth rider.
Wow.
Since it opened in 1979.
Whoa.
And they invited us to come up there for this celebration.
Sure.
And it was the coolest experience I have ever been.
Really?
Yes.
Because you've had some really neat experiences over the years.
Oh my gosh. I've ridden Harley Quinn. I've ridden the Texas Skyscraper, Aquaman. I mean, the Giant and the Titan, doing all these media things. But this one here was really cool. And what they did after we did the ride in the morning and they did the whole, press thing, they took us backstage. We walked underneath the coaster on the other side of Johnson Creek, that is between Johnson Creek and the access road of I-30 where the double loops are. We were right there, right by the double loops of the coaster, watching that roller coaster train come over the hill, come down, and go through those loops at 60 miles an hour. And at one point, I could stand under the track and watch the train go flying over your head.
Oh, that's cool.
And I've got video on my Facebook page and on my phone here that shows that. And it is just the coolest experience ever. And it's because of the relationship from Six Flags and working there for so long, too.
In case you couldn't tell, Lucky Larry's into roller coasters.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could go to every single park. And now they've just expanded or they've merged with Cedar Fair, and it's just like, but now sometimes getting older, my nerves are a little bit, there's just, I have to take some headache medicine so that I don't get sick. But roller coasters are my thing. I love roller coasters.
Yeah.
Can't.
I know that was a left turn, Chuck. I
Oh,
hope,
no.
I hope you don't mind.
No.
It's part of the origin story of Lucky Larry.
No,
Yep.
but Larry, as you were explaining, I was going, talk about different people. Last time I was on a ride, I was like 20 years old. I did a tilt-a-whirl twice.
Oh, see, I won't do that.
And I was trying to impress a date, and well, I didn't because my bratwurst and soda came up. So.
Yeah, see, no, if it's a round and round ride like that, I won't do. But if it's a roller coaster, I'll do. So if you put me on that rocket ride that's at the state fair or something like that, or just something that just spins really fast, I will not do. Because my equilibrium is so off, and I do get sick after that.
I'm not. And as a man of a certain age, it's like I have balance issues for everything these days. So I can't do any of that.
So you were on the morning show with Storm.
Yep.
But then things shifted and you were the lead on the morning show later, right?
No, it was a partnership between 3 people.
Okay.
Storm had got an opportunity to leave Tyler and go work for a trade magazine out in California. And so he moved off to LA. And so the morning show was left empty. And they weren't exactly sure what they were going to do with the morning show. Because I was on it, they wanted to leave me on it, but I wasn't going to do it by myself because I'm not doing mornings by myself. And then they said,
it's a big job.
Oh, there's a lot of responsibility to it, and doing it day in and day out, there's just a lot that happens. But they said, all right, we're going to try this out. We know that you and Jana worked together, and Jana was the news person, the news girl, that she did news for us and 96X, which was our sister station upstairs, our classic rock station. And they said, we're going to put Jake on from the night show, and we're going to put y'all together as the morning show. And it's going to be Jake, Jana, and Lucky Larry. Well, they knew that me and Jana got along. Mm-hmm. They knew that me and Jake got along. Mm-hmm. The wild card was, how is Jake and Jana going to get along? That is what formed the morning show. And that's what made us successful for, I want to say probably 3 years or so.
Yeah.
Because Jana was on one side of the fence and Jake was on the other side of the fence. And here I am standing in the middle.
Were you referee, for lack of better term?
I was the referee, but then also I did make a decision. And I remember one time on the air, we're talking about something, and our studio was set up like a horseshoe, and Jake was standing in the U part of it, and I was at the one end, and Jana was on the other side. And one morning, Jana just said, she pounded her fist on the table, and she said, "Lucky Larry, will you just make a decision for once? Get on one side, get on the other side, make a decision." Wow. I never made a decision, but, yeah. But that's what made our show. It was very fun like that. It was pretty awesome. We did some funny things, and looking here in Mandee's clubhouse right now, there are 2 posters on the wall, NSYNC posters. And one of the promotions that came to mind was when NSYNC was really huge.
No strings attached tour. I know where this is going.
We had tickets to give away to see them in Dallas.
Okay.
And of course, the boy bands back in the 90s and late 90s, you couldn't touch those guys. That you had to get tickets to them.
Yeah.
Well, we had tickets, and we said, all right, the promotion is Insane for NSYNC. You do anything you want, and if it's the most insane thing, you could win these tickets to see NSYNC. And we had a partnership with On the Border.
Okay.
On the corner of the Loop and Broadway, and the general manager's, their name was Debbie, and she said, anytime y'all want to use my parking lot, go for it. And we said, okay, meet us out at On the Border, 7:00 on this day, and do your thing.
I showed up. I was
Were
there.
you there for
Okay.
this?
There.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't participate at a high level. Let me just say that.
Well, I know.
I bought a pack of markers at Brookshire's on my way there with my friend Stephanie, and we wrote "Insane for NSYNC" on our legs.
Okay.
If you think that's insane, just wait.
Okay.
There were people that showed up with those plastic kiddie pools.
Okay.
And all kinds of just weird food combinations and vegetables and everything. And they just put it in this pool and they just
Wallered
around it like there was a bathtub. I'm like, that's pretty insane. That's pretty gross too.
Yeah.
And this one woman wanted to turn me into a human sundae.
What is the step-by-step on that, if I can ask?
I don't know how I got into her thought about turning me into a human sundae, but she had.
Well, she heard your butt was lucky.
Well,
that might be it.
now that's a left turn.
Sorry, Larry.
The ice cream, the chocolate syrup, the whipped cream, the cherries and everything. I said, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it. And Jana said, oh, yes, you are. So, okay, I give in, take my shirt off. I lay on the sidewalk, and she proceeds to put ice cream and chocolate syrup and everything on me and
I had
eats
forgotten
off of
about
me.
that.
And I was the human sundae.
She didn't win, though.
She didn't win. I forget who won this contest. All I know is after I was done, we were live on the air. I said, I'm out. Y'all can finish this contest. I'm going home and taking a shower right now.
There were I remember crazy things. There was like a peanut butter and jelly situation in a pool. Some woman had cut out pictures from like the magazines and like made a dress out of it. The one person I talked to got a tattoo of their logo and a flaming heart on her leg.
Oh, man.
Thinking that was going to be the winner. I don't remember what
Sorry.
won, actually.
I had no idea.
But it was crazy stuff like this. And the thing is, On the Border, for those of you that don't know, is located at the major intersection in Tyler, especially at that time.
Yeah.
the Loop and Broadway. So this is all happening on the grass on like a Saturday morning, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I don't know. It was in the summer, so it might have been a weekday, but it was literally insane.
It was crazy, and we haven't done things like that in a decade or so. But yeah, that's one of the crazy promotions that we've done.
Mm-hmm. So what was the most insane thing? Do you have a recollection of that?
I don't remember.
I mean, the Human Sunday thing is pretty nuts.
It's pretty crazy.
Honestly, I don't remember what one.
I wonder if Jake or Jana would know. Do you think they'd remember?
They have better memories than I do. I'm sure they do.
But I mean, the whole Sunday thing, that's something where it's like, let me take
I don't
notes.
think you could do that today. Like, I feel like that's a little bit of a
Kind of violation.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that also, like with Craddock. Like, I'm not disparaging or putting anybody down when I say this, but like, I don't think you could tell an intern to go stand in 7-Eleven and let people rub your butt. Like, I don't think you could do that today. Where in the 90s, you know,
Yeah, you could.
especially a female. Like, I really that wouldn't happen. But like, even for a male though, Larry, like, were you did you ever have any kind of like reservation about that? As a 20-year-old man,
my personality's shy to begin with. And
Right.
Just standing there in a Kiss FM t-shirt and inside the 7-Eleven and saying and having people do that. But one thing that Craddock made me do is one woman had called Craddock, called the morning show and said, "Yeah, I just saw him. He's at that 7-Eleven." And he had her go back to the 7-Eleven and talk to me on the phone on the station. And he had me scream at the top of my lungs, "I am Lucky Butt Larry. Come rub my butt for luck." Inside the 7-Eleven. And people are looking at me like, who is this guy?
Lucky Butt Larry. That's who this guy is.
Yeah, but you probably can't do that these days.
No, but it's highly entertaining. Thanks for going along with it.
Yeah.
Makes for some great stories. So you transitioned though. You've been with the station for a long time. In fact, you were honored just a couple of years ago by the city, weren't you?
Yeah, for 25 years of being here in the market.
Yeah.
Being on the air for 25 years. Now, speaking totally, it's probably been 25 years because now I'm on year 27. But for a year and a half, I was in Portland, Oregon working. So I was away, but they still counted that as 25 years. And so it was February 17th, 2 years ago. The city said that was Lucky Larry Day. And it was also Lucky Larry Day in Smith County.
Nice.
That's
The
awesome.
Commissioner's Court also recognized that too.
That's great.
So that's pretty cool.
It is really cool. Well, you've done a
Yeah.
lot of public service too over the years, which is one of the things I admire about you and appreciate that you still include me in. And that's with Children's Miracle Network.
Well, I wouldn't be doing it if you weren't helping me out.
Oh, well, thanks.
You are a huge help for the organization and a huge part of the success for the radio station with the Children's Miracle Network because without you, I couldn't do it.
Well, that's very kind, but I'm pretty sure you could. I'm pretty sure you could because you did it for many years without me. Before I came to the station in 2013, you had help.
There's help, yeah, but it's not all me. But yeah, there's a lot of help that goes into it, and it's very rewarding to see families from East Texas benefit from the listeners and their generosity. Mm-hmm. All we do is tell stories about the kids that are affected, whether it's some kind of a life altering event or something that they have to deal with every single day. And if it wasn't for the Children's Miracle Network, a lot of the families would have to go to another facility for assistance and for help. And there's a lot of doctors and a lot of nurses and a lot of caring people within our community that care for these kids.
Yeah. But you give 2 days worth of time on your radio station every year to benefit this organization that benefits the entire county and really surrounding counties too, because sometimes people have to come in from.
Oh yeah. It's more than just the Tyler area. I mean, they have services that reach from Canton to Wascom, east and west. and then probably up from Sulphur Springs down to Alto and Rusk area, north and south. There's I think it's 30 something counties that Children's Miracle Network here locally touches the families.
Yeah. And that generosity from the community stays here in
Yes,
those
it
counties
does.
is what you were.
Yeah. And we just celebrated our 25th year.
Yeah, something.
Was it last?
It was.
Last year's 25th year.
Yeah, it was.
And in that 25 years, we are just shy of $1 million.
I remember that. I heard you two doing the wrap up last year, and you were talking about that. But you know, I always find it very heart-rending. You talk about you guys putting the spotlight on kids, on their stories, on their needs, and it's very effective. I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting in my car and just going, "Oh, this is terrible," because it makes, if you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, if you know children, you go, "Well, I have to help somehow."
In doing this too, both Mandee and I get to watch these kids grow up over time. And unfortunately, over time, we have lost, several kids throughout the years. And there's one kid that we play a story every single year. And although he's passed away, I think it was about 10 years ago, whenever I hear him and I play his story on the air, it still affects me to this day, because this kid was fighting every single day for his life in the hospital, and you can hear it in his breath, and you can hear it when he's talking, and it hits me every time I play his story, and I hope it hits people the same way it hits me, and that motivates them to pick up the phone and to make that donation to CMN to help kids here in East Texas.
And it does too. So you'd been doing mornings, as Mandee said, you've been doing mornings. When did you make the transition to settle in? Because you're doing afternoons, right? Now
I am, yeah.
Okay, so when did you, and you've been in afternoons for a good long time too.
I've bounced back and forth between middays and afternoons.
But you've been programming for a long time too, right?
Yeah.
When you came back from Portland, did you go into that role?
I ended up in Portland because the morning show had some changes with Jake, Jana, and Lucky Larry.
Okay.
Jake had made the decision to move and to do his own thing. So he went off to somewhere on the East Coast to work for a country station. And then it was just Jana and Lucky Larry in the morning. And we were doing our thing for about 8 months. And then Jana made the decision that she wanted to get out of radio,
Okay.
and move back home to Louisiana. And so once again, it was back to me, and I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, it's a tall order.
Yeah. And so at the time, Michael Storm had moved from San Diego and ended up in Portland at a brand new station. And he knew what was happening here. And he had a music director position open and said, "You want to come up here and work for me or work with me?" And I said, "How much are you paying?" He said, blah, 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 blah. I said,
Okay.
"I'm on my way."
I'm on my way.
And so I went up there and worked in Oregon for a year and a half. And this was in mid 2001 to 2002.
Uh-huh.
And we had the best time up there at that station. It was a brand new signal. And it's not like it's a move in where someone, they buy this frequency and they move it closer to the metro. This was a brand new station.
Yeah, virgin signal.
And it was hard for us because at the time it was the company that we worked for didn't put any marketing money into the station as far as television and, signage and all that kind of
Okay.
stuff. They just did 2 murals on downtown buildings, and that was it.
That's it?
That was it. That's all they did for us. We had a vehicle, but
That's
we couldn't do
challenging.
it. But the other hardest thing was we were Star 105.9, and at the time it was called a modern AC format.
Okay.
But we were Star 105.9, and there was a Rosie 105.5 that was also a modern AC station.
Oh,
And so they didn't think about this when they put the station on with a format very similar to another format, just 2 clicks away on the dial.
sure.
But year and a half, they changed the format, and then Storm and I moved on. and they changed that format for the next year, for the next 4 years. They couldn't keep a format on there. And so then I ended up back here in Tyler in late 2002, programming Mix 93.1. And I think at the time I was doing middays. Then I switched to afternoons, and then middays, and then afternoons. It just goes back and forth.
Of course, with things being computerized, it's apples and oranges almost. And especially if you have to consider it versus mornings. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nowadays, I'm not programming the radio station any longer.
Okay.
Corporate programs everything.
Okay.
And now we're more content creators, and we have to create content for our mobile app and our website and write stories that are happening locally.
Okay.
So as far as day-to-day looking at the music log and saying, okay, this song's going to be next and this song's going to be next, which surprises a lot of people. They think the jock is in the studio playing wherever they want to.
Yeah.
They're not. There's a list that they follow, and there's a playlist that they play, but we no longer program the station. It's all programmed corporately.
It's amazing, though, on when you talk to folks, or I've had situations where people will surmise it because you have, for instance, a particular syndicated, maybe morning personality or personalities that they're local. I mean, Big D and Bubba in this market, when they left KNUE, and there was somebody in our building that said, basically, well, I don't know how these guys are going to survive without their job. And I said, well, with probably the dozens and dozens of other affiliates that they have. And the person looks at me and I said, they're in Nashville. They're not even based here. Now, in all fairness, KNUE for Big D and Bubba, I think was their third affiliate. So they'd been in the market for 20 years, 21 years, something like that.
I think it was their second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so they'd been there forever. So,
and there are people behind the scenes that worked very, very hard locally to localize that show
and to make that show
KNUE.
sound.
there were times during school closings and stuff.
Yes.
They would beat local stations doing it.
Oh yeah,
Easily. You know.
yeah. We have local producers that work behind the scenes, and at that time, Michael Gibson was the local producer, and he was in contact with them via messenger or whatnot. And if there was something happening, he was in the studio, and he would send a message to Big D and Bubba, and whenever they had a moment, they would cut a quick liner and send it to us, and he would put it on the radio.
Yeah.
And so that's what having a syndicated morning show, but having a local producer that is in touch with them like that makes that show sound very, very local.
Yeah.
And for us on my station, we have the Kid Craddock Morning Show. They'll cut local liners for us, but not during the show. People are so familiar with Kelly and Al and JC because of the proximity to Dallas. And so they just feel like they know them already, and they think they're here. And when they have guests in the studio, they think they're here. Okay, sorry. We're not bringing Kelly Clarkson to Tyler, Texas. Sorry,
love
Blake
to.
Shelton is not coming to Tyler, Texas. We would like that to happen, but that doesn't happen. But people believe that. But that's the magic of radio, too, at the same time.
That's what I was going to say, too, is people still have. We had a client come by last week, and it was Michelle Mills, and with the Chamber of Commerce, she had a commercial. And Jeff, our production guy, was out, so I went in and engineered, and she said, this is my nephew Calvin. He's never, seen a radio station. I said, well, come on, let's take the nickel tour, and showed him around, and this is what we do, and this is what we do. And it reminded me that, most people exposure to radio is the box, the speaker, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of nice to sit there and say, well, this is what's happening. This is how the magic is done, so to speak. At least, how we try to do it. And I don't think that as a guy that's done music radio for over 30 years and then transitioned into news, it's still the same animal. It's still, you're still serving your audience, your constituents, so to speak, and still trying to do product.
Yeah. And one of the things that I learned early on, too, was that you can't be thinking about the hundreds and the thousands of people that are listening to you. you have to be thinking about the one person that is listening to you. You're not talking to the masses. You're just talking to one person. Like for us, I'm talking to a female that is 23 years old. She may have one kid. She's working in a dentist office. And so we have this mental image of our target listener in our mind. And so every time that mic is opened, we're talking to her.
Sure.
And so although you're a guy working at Discount Tire, you're 35 years old, you have 4 kids, and you're working in that heat while she's working in the dentist office, we're still talking to you too at the same time.
Sure.
So you have to keep that in mind. And so when people come in, they go, don't you get nervous? Like you give the nickel tour to people.
Yeah.
Don't you get nervous talking to all these people? No, because I'm just talking to one person. And that's one thing that you have to keep in mind.
And I never think about it in terms of, I think if I actually really thought about it, I get nervous if I have a lot of people in the studio. Does that make sense? I don't like people in the studio with me at all. And so
no, it doesn't. I don't get nervous.
I don't like it. Not so much. I just don't like it. To me, it's like the studio is like my lab. It is. It's private. It's me and the microphone, and it's trying to impart information. Now, the information is, we need to talk to Jerry Jones with news headlines. We need to do an update right now. Jared, what do you have? And then, go back. Sports is coming up. Boom, boom. News time is, and all that. But yeah, I just look at the studio as this kind of environment. At least when I'm there, it's just me.
Years ago, when we worked together at the ranch, Chuck did afternoons and I did middays, and I bopped into the studio. I don't know what I was saying to him at the time, but he looked over at me on this particular day, and this was a rare thing from Chuck. This is not Madison Square Garden.
But wait a minute. Now I have to amend that. It just wasn't you. It was Don Jones, Tara Holly.
Were they with me?
Yeah, there was like 3-4 people.
I didn't remember that.
And we
part.
had a small studio.
It was small.
It wasn't Mandee's clubhouse either. I mean, it was a small studio. So it was kind of like if in the studio, if it was like, for instance, you're at the board and Tom Perriman's here. And if you had another person, it was getting, crowded. And then I said, no, it's not Madison Square Garden. And as program director, I was accorded the type of response I expected, which was I was laughed at.
Well, and then we left. We left.
Yeah, but I was never
It was a joke. You were playing with us and also telling us to leave in a nice way.
Yes, and as a program director, I've always felt that you tend to you can make your point and not be an a-hole about things.
Well, I was fortunate to share an office with both of you for probably about the same roughly number of years. Chuck and I think we shared an office for about 4 or 5 years, and I shared an office with Larry for 6. And I did have that experience with both of you. Both of you mentored me. You both feel like family to me. Chuck often felt like my dad early on because I was dating these weirdo jerks from around here that I don't know where I found them. Anyway, and then Larry was very much like an older brother to me. And when I first got there at Mix, I was so eager to learn. I had listened to you for years. I was excited to work with you. And you were such a well-oiled machine used to working by yourself that for like 6 months, I don't think you let me do anything but my show. And then I think you realized I really wanted to be helpful to you. I wanted to collaborate and work with you. And then I felt like over time you were like, okay, maybe she's okay. I don't know. That was my perception of it. And you let me start helping you around the station.
Yeah, because at first it's like there's certain ways that I want to do things and how I know or I want the station to go. And it's hard to turn that control over to someone else that I'm not.
You don't know.
I don't have the full read on right now. It's like, especially setting up the morning show. Because the morning show sets the tone of the station for throughout the day. And if you put in the wrong song, it's like...
Which I've done.
I wouldn't have played that song. I would have played a different one. And so, but over time, you allowed me to do it.
Yes. And then there were still times later where you were like, well, let's not play that one again.
Right,
You've
yeah.
maybe overplayed that Usher song. I think we've heard, enough times this week, Mandee.
Yeah, just a little bit. But yeah.
My experience with you is different, though.
Was it?
You said,
Uh-oh. What did I say?
you said, hey, can I help you on the back end of the website? And I said, yes.
Well, that's...
Oh, I hated it. And the funny thing is, at KTBB, we have a requirement where once every 6 weeks on the weekend, we do the back end of the website to make sure that information is updated. And throughout the past year, it's been something to where it's kind of like gotten second nature, which I think is just broadcast irony for me, at least, to where the person that didn't want to do it, it's perfectly fine. But that's learning by doing, and you grow on the job, and all of that too. So
What else do we have to share with Lucky Larry? I guess there's one thing, and this might be a whole other episode that you want to come back and join us for, because we don't want to go too long. But you've both been music directors on top 40 formats, but Larry pop and Chuck country.
Yep.
I would love to, on another show maybe, like pick your brains about that and the experiences that you've had working with the record reps, the various artists that maybe you had an inkling about that made it, and then the ones where you were like, oh man, this is it. This is the one. This is the song that's going to break this artist, and then they never went anywhere. Because I know it's happened for both of you.
Well, I'm sure it's happened for Chuck, but for me, being the music director, I was brought up a little bit differently, and I didn't have full autonomy, full control of the radio station. Mm-hmm. Larry Kent, who was the promotion or the operations manager, whenever I formulated the playlist, I had to run it by him, mm-hmm. and then he would say, "Okay, we're going to do this and this, and no, we're not going to do this." Mm-hmm. And then after that, we had another another operations manager come in, and he had a formula of other Texas stations that I had to look at and basically follow. So my experience of being a music director is totally different than Chuck's was, where with him on the country station, they probably had the autonomy to do whatever they wanted to. Whereas I've always had an oversight, or mm-hmm. Someone always looking over my shoulder. So I haven't broke anybody. I'm like, this is the best song ever. I don't think I've had those if I've had those moments, I've forgotten them.
I'm just thinking maybe or somebody that you really felt strongly about, that maybe you were like, no, I really think we should have played that one. Or maybe as somebody, not that you broke them necessarily, mm-hmm. but as an artist was being developed and they showed up, maybe you thought that the songs would chart higher than they did, or that they'd have a follow-up that was persistent. Do you know what I'm trying to say there?
I think I follow that now. I think one person that the Craddock Morning Show, they pretend to not like her, but I think they do.
Yeah.
Is Avril Lavigne.
Okay.
I think she's a very talented artist. We were first introduced to her when I was in Portland. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing about her, when they were first coming on board or first trying to make it, they go to do these station tours. Mm-hmm. And she was playing for our staff in a conference room one time.
Okay.
And we were in the conference room. There's a bunch of salespeople and the programming people were in there. And she was leaning against a credenza. It was her and her guitarist, and ready for her to perform. Guitar starts strumming. He's strumming. He's playing the song. He looks over at her and he says, "Are you going to start singing?"
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, man.
She didn't start singing the song. I didn't know what she was thinking, but that's one of the first memories I have. So I probably think she would be one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I remember we had Black Hawk in the studio.
Yeah.
And it was so powerful because it's the three guys and they're in there. And it was Ken Rush from Arista Records that brought her to town. But I had one record that we broke. Alison Krauss, When You Say Nothing at All.
Oh, really?
I found out about a year and a half after it had finished. The music director or the regional had told me that we had broken the record nationally along with the station in Midland. Because it was on the Keith Whitley tribute album, mm-hmm. and at the same time there was a Merle Haggard tribute album. So what I would do is I would package them up, and I would just let them fly and see what would come to the top. I would check request logs, and at the time we were doing, I think there was maybe 6 or 7 record stores Tyler, Longview, Athens, maybe Canton. And so if they would participate once in a great while, they'd get tickets in the mail or something like that. And so I wasn't looking for like really, really hard numbers, but just kind of trends. So, and, but that was kind of neat to have that. That's the only one I've ever been aware on a national, something that was seemingly a minor piece of music from a tribute album that all of a sudden became a big hit. And for Alison Krauss, who, still is kind of
a bluegrass artist.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Viewed as that, and especially at that time. This is obviously eons before she teamed up with Robert Plant. Mm-hmm. Although her version of Black Dog with Plant is just incredible. If you've never heard it. Oh, yeah.
I don't think I have.
I'll have to look that one up.
It's incredible. She does the opening line, "Hey, hey, mama says the way you move." With her singing it, it's like, yikes, this is awesome. But yeah, but I do miss music direction a lot. But I use those same things, though, putting together news stories and, looking at things and or when it's looking at our web pages, how are things stacking? Is the most important on top? How's the pictures look? Is everything in order? Same deal.
You're right.
Of course, that too. It's like those radio muscles that you think because you're going from one job to another, they don't die. You just use them on other things,
Right.
Right.
You do that with social media and in the app and everything that you do for Mix Now. I've watched you do it. It's been so neat to come back each year and do the Radiothon with you and see, how things have evolved or how they haven't in some ways since I left 5 years ago. It's been neat to come back and be in the studio for 2 days and hang out and be a part of the family again.
Well, I'm thankful that you're there every single year. And yeah, some things just don't change.
Right.
It's just the way it is.
The Craddock heads, the fat head pictures are still across the Mix banner in the studio. And there's some things left behind from our friend Rod Wayne. There's a snowflake that he hung on the tower in the studio where and it's still there. It's like Rod's still in the studio with us. There's just little things like that around the station that haven't changed. There's I think a poster from Deep Blue something, Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah, there's like that.
That song was kind of big for you guys at that time. That was Storm, maybe.
Yeah, that was back in
95?
95, 96, something like that. Yeah.
Was that their only song?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one hit wonder.
Yeah. But things like that they're just still there. How many years is that now? That'll be almost 30 years next year, I guess.
Close to it, yeah.
That's been floating
Close
around the
to it,
station.
yeah.
So it's just neat. Anyway, I love it. I'm thankful to go back. I'm thankful to both of you for this time because when I decided to get a wild hair and start a podcast, the first one I started, of course, still running is mostly about women and their stories, and a lot of them local to East Texas. But through my relationship with both of you, I'm still connected to radio because you're my friends. And so having the opportunity to have coffee with Chuck over the years, we just decided to take that conversation and put microphones to it. And then we were like, we should bring more friends along. This would be more fun with more friends.
Let's reach out and bring them aboard.
Yeah. So I'm so thankful that you took the time, and
thank you.
It might be fun if we've talked about it, maybe expand, but to maybe invite Jake and Jana if they wanted to come and do a little morning show reunion.
They would really enjoy that. The last time that we were all together was the 20th anniversary for Children's Miracle Network.
Yeah.
And they came down, and our promotions director at the time, Leah Gorman, who works over at Kilgore College right now. No, Kilgore ISD now. She came over, and Michael Storm came up from Houston, and we're there for the 20th anniversary for the Radiothon. It was really, really cool.
That's great.
Yeah, so we should see if we could get that gang back together, and I don't know, maybe our friends at On the Border would let us set up some microphones on the patio.
Wow, get the ice cream out, huh, Larry?
Yeah, no ice cream.
Salsa?
Salsa, yes. Margaritas, definitely. Ice cream, yeah. We'll leave that in the freezer.
This has been another episode of the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
Podcasting.
gear,
And the gearheads that use the gear.
and making money with a hot mic.
And other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.